What is going on today, guys? AU here, and today we're bringing you the ISL Season 4 draft breakdown for the rebranded Atlanta Braviaries. We're no longer the Atlanta Braviaries. We are the Eterna City Scizors. So a lot of new things coming out of this league. Now, if this is something that you are interested in, I also have a Wi-Fi league that goes up on this. This is going to be a showdown league, but I have a Wi-Fi league that goes up on the channel, which is the UGL. Currently 4-1, so definitely check out that playlist. That playlist will be linked in the description somewhere. And if this is something you're going to want to see, then subscribe and click the like button, because it's what's going to help me out the most, and you'll get notified every time a video goes up. So we're going to kind of hop right into it, but I do want to start out by saying that in the ISL Season 4, it is split up into 3 different divisions: Platinum, Diamond, Pearl. I somehow have made the Platinum division, which is the most experienced, in quotation marks, because there's a bunch of good people even in the other divisions, but it's supposed to be the most competitive division of the 3. And when I say competitive, I mean this is the most competitive draft league I've ever seen. Like, I would venture to say it's more competitive than even things like WBE. The players that we have in this draft league are insanely good. There's not one player in this draft league that I look at and think this is going to be a free win, because the players in this draft league are just stupid good, and a bunch of them you'll see I have played before. KJ's in the top league with me. There was a couple people that have been on streams before, like Tago, Lambo, which we talked about in a bunch of ISL matchups, Game of the Week matchups. Who else is there? Rogers. You might have heard me talk about Rogers before. He's up there. I can't even remember. Celestial's in the top league. I can't remember a lot of people that you probably have heard me talk about on the channel before, but let's just say the competition is stupid, and it's going to be a very, very, very fun season for everybody in this league. A little bit about the league. We are GALAR decks, so no Nat decks this season. We did go to GALAR decks this season, and it was a 10-man draft with 14 people in the top league, which, I will not lie, made things very, very tough, especially if you got sniped on a couple picks. Making up for those picks was very, very hard, because with 10 Pokemon, every Pokemon kind of fills a niche, and once you get sniped on one niche in GALAR decks, there's not a lot of Pokemon that share a niche with another Pokemon. So it was a tough time. I did get sniped a few times, which made it a little bit harder, but I will say that our draft is very, very good, and I've been told that it's probably around the top 3, top 4 drafts on paper. Now, does that mean I'm gonna win every game? No. Does that mean I'm gonna win most of my games? No. I could straight up go 0-10 or 0-11, however many weeks there are. But it's just what it is with the players that are in this league. Losing a ton of games is not a small chance. I might not even make playoffs, but hopefully we're going to, and that's what we're going to aim to do. And I think with the team that we have, we can do that. So this video is going to end up getting a little bit long, so I'm going to go ahead and hop right into things. I'm going to go by tiers. So I'm going to start out with my tier 1, tier 2. Actually, I have 1 tier 1, 4 tier 2s, 2 tier 3s, 1 tier 4, 2 tier 5s. So the first tier 1 that I took was Gengar. Now, Gengar actually was my second overall pick, but I took Gengar because my first overall pick was Incineroar, but we'll get into him a little bit later. Gengar gave my team a nice speed tier, because in GALAR decks, speed is very hard to come by, especially on a 10 Pokemon draft and a 14-man league. So Gengar gave me a base 110 speed tier and a base 130 special attacker to kind of run wild with on my team, and it fit my team very nice because I was able to cover up the Ghost, Dark, and Psychic type weaknesses in the back. Wasn't really able to cover up the ground type weakness as much as I would have wanted to, but we did get 2, I think. We got 2 ground type resistances / immunities to deal with that. Obviously Gengar doesn't have Levitate more, which is why we have to be worried about that, but Gengar in GALAR decks just hits like a truck, and I get things like, it gets great coverage, it gets like Dazzling Gleam, Shadow Ball, Sludge Wave, Focus Blast, Thunderbolt, it gets What else does it get? Giga Drain. It gets Nasty Plot for setup. It gets Parasong if everyone runs some kind of Parasong set. It gets things like Toxic, Will-O-Wisp Trick, Scarf Trick is a very common set. It even gets corrosive Gas now, which it has knockoff. So if I ever wanted to like take an item, knockoff would probably be the better play. But it does get corrosive gas, which is a cool tech to have. Hypnosis, Icy Wind, and Prison is a cool thing. Mean Look for, like I said, like the Parasong sets. If I want a Mean Look Parasong, it gets things like, that's pretty much it. It gets things like Roleplay. Roleplay could be a cool tech for it, or even Skill Swap, basically the same thing. But other than that, it gets Trick Room, Venoshock. But most of the time, you're just going to see Shadow Ball, Sludge Wave, and some kind of coverage move on a choice set. Choice Scarf and Choice Specs probably would run pretty well in a lot of the leagues. And looking at a lot of the teams, I might be able to kind of run a modest Scarf a lot of the weeks, because the Pokemon that would be able to outspeed Gengar with a Scarf a lot of the times don't seem to really pressure it that much. And even Pokemon like a speed tier below it wouldn't really run Scarf a lot of the times just to outspeed Gengar. Like the ones I can think of would be like Flygon, because Scarf Flygon obviously is better. So if I wanted to run Gengar that week, it would have to be some kind of like Scarf Gengar to outspeed Flygon. But a lot of the times I can see Gengar coming as a modest Scarf. But Gengar also just as basically like a sub Nasty Plot set with Black Sludge. It could be a Spec set. It could be a Expert Belt set or a Life Orb set. Like Gengar gave me a lot of I think possibilities with my tier 1 slot, and I was able to bag that up really well, especially with my first 2 picks. And you're about to see my first pick, which was Incineroar. Incineroar I first picked basically because when I was looking at tier 1, I saw nothing that I really wanted to use. I knew by the time that it was going to get to me, things like Dragapult was going to be gone, Zeraora was going to be gone. Rillaboom was gone by that point, which I probably wasn't even going to be picking up Rillaboom at all because I just felt like it was hard to build around Rillaboom with only 10 Pokemon, and the person that did build around Rillaboom, I think, kind of saw that. So I'm kind of glad I didn't get Rillaboom, or if it would have went to me, I wouldn't have taken it. But Rillaboom didn't make it to me. I think Scizor made it to me, but I didn't really want to take Scizor again. I was trying to use a bunch of new Pokemon that I haven't used before, because in UGL, I have things like Scizor, Urshifu, Flygon, just a lot of Pokemon that I've used and you've seen before. So I was kind of trying to make a team that I haven't used before, and there's only 2 things on this team that I've ever used on a team before, and only one of those things has ever made it to YouTube. So this will be really, really fun. But I did first pick Incineroar, thinking it's one of the better tier 2s. It's a very, very good fire type, and a lot of people are scrambling for fire types late draft, so I'm glad I took Incineroar. It's a very, very good dark type, one of the better dark types in the format. Great knockoff user. I didn't want to get beat by Side Spam, especially stored power sets, and I needed the Ghost Resist. So I took Incineroar, and I kind of had a defensive core lined up behind Incineroar. But then when I second picked Gengar, I realized that these 2 things go really well together. Gengar switches in on fighting moves, Incineroar switches in on Ghost and Psychic moves. The Gengar switches in on, no, that's it. I think that's it. They both share ground weakness, which, like I said, is kind of a weak point in the team. But Incineroar has a lot of versatility. I wanted my defensive Pokemon to also have kind of an offensive presence, which Incineroar does perfectly. Incineroar is like the perfect example for this. So you have Intimidate for all the physical attackers. You can have Will-O-Wisp. You can choose between Parting Shot and U-Turn. U-Turn from Incineroar does a lot of chip to a lot of teams, and it's really nice to have. But if you don't need that chip, you just run Parting Shot, and you get some setup options with things like Gengar to come in and set up a Nasty Plot. So you could even do that. You have like AV Incineroar, Band Incineroar, or Banded Incineroar. You have Leftovers Incineroar. You have Heavy Duty Boots Incineroar. Like there's just a ton of Incineroar sets that you could run. It gets good coverage. It gets Flare Blitz. You get things like Knockoff, Close Combat, Darkest Lariat, Drain Punch. You get Earthquake. You get things like, you can get Leech Life. You get Lash Out, Iron Head. You get Shadow Claw, Superpower, Thunder Punch, Throat Chop, and like I said, Toxic, U-Turn, Will-O-Wisp are all pretty good moves on Incineroar. But like I said, I first picked Incineroar thinking Incineroar is going to be a Pokemon that's going to fit on most teams, and I can definitely get Pokemon behind it that can pair very well with it, which I think I did. I think I did that very well. But like Incineroar was just going to pair well on a lot of teams. Was one of the better tier 2s. I had 6th pick, and Incineroar at 6th pick was kind of perfect because I don't think it would have made it back to me had I not taken it there. And this next Pokemon I wanted to take was Slowbro, but we ended up getting Slowking, which kind of worked out because Slowking was a tier 2 where Slowbro was a tier 1. I think Slowking is probably a tier 1 Pokemon. A couple people were kind of disagreeing with me, which is fine. I am not upset about it because I get Slowking in tier 2, but I do think that Slowking in tier 2 is a little less expensive or little cheap for what it does, especially because now I have a teleporter, I have a Trick Roomer, I have a Regenerator Mon, I have just basically a very specially based bulk Pokemon. It's very bulky on the special side, whereas Incineroar can be my bulk on the physical side. And Incineroar and Slowking pair very well with each other defensively. So Incineroar takes the ghost type attacks, it takes the grass type attacks, Slowking takes the water type attacks, it takes the fighting type attacks, Incineroar takes the dark type attacks. That's kind of it. And now Slowking also can take psychic type attacks for the Gengar. But like I said, Slowking is a very good Pokemon. You'll see on ladder a lot of times they'll have like heavy duty boots, but you also have things like you have leftover sets. You could have some kind of tech with like mental herb or something if you don't want to get taunted. I think, yeah, blocks taunt. The biggest thing though is with a draft that you're kind of struggling with speed, I wanted to make sure I could get something that has a Trick Room option, and Slowking is one of the better ones because you have Trick Room and Teleport, so you can set Trick Room and teleport out into some kind of Trick Room Sweeper, which we got later on in the draft. It's kind of semi Trick Room Sweeper that would do very well against most of the teams. But Calm Mind Slowking is not something to sleep on. It gets great coverage, and it gets like Flamethrower, it gets I think it gets Ice Beam. It does get Ice Beam. It does not get Thunderbolt, which I learned earlier today, but it gets things like Yawn, it gets Scald, Shadow Ball, Psychic, Psyshock, it gets Focus Blast, it does get Focus Blast, it gets Expanding Force, which I don't think anybody took Psychic Terrain, which is a little surprising, but it does get that. It gets Trick, Tri-Attack, like I said, Teleport, T-Wave. There's just a lot of things that you can do with Slowking, and it added a very good and a very nice defensive option to my team, because towards the end of this video you'll see the last thing I took that kind of rounded out my defensive core. Right now I have Incineroar and Slowking, and there's one more thing that really rounds out my defensive core, but Slowking added a lot of value to this team, I think, especially with the Trick Room option, being able to get basically the best momentum move on a very bulky Pokemon, and with Regenerator at that, and being able to go into something else that pressures my opponent's Pokemon that's in at that time. And one of those Pokemon that we'll be able to go into is Lucario. Lucario fits a very good niche in my team, in that I needed a Steel type pretty late draft. I think Lucario was my third to last pick, and I was able to wait on it for that long. I almost got sniped on it. The guy that was right before me was talking about his picks, because I messaged him asking him what he was picking, because he was the only one that looked like he could snipe me on Lucario, and he was going to take Lucario, but to be honest, Lucario on his team wasn't really the best option, I don't think. So I kind of talked him into taking something else, but I do think it helped him. I didn't talk him into taking something that was worse. I think I talked him into taking something that was better, and at the same time also got Lucario onto my team. And Lucario fits a really cool niche of it was a base 90 speed tier, which I really needed. It can run mix. Lucario's versatility in tier 2 is very good. The biggest thing is its ability Justified. Justified comes in on any dark move that wants to hit Gengar and wants to hit Slowking. I have a Psychic type in tier 5 that it comes in on. It comes in on knockoffs, and they basically just give me +1 attack. It fits a really cool niche in making sure that the opponent knows they can't just spam dark type moves against my defensive threats, because Lucario could come in and take that dark type move and turn it into a +1 attack, and then just run through their team with things like close combat, bullet punch, or whatever. So it fits a really cool niche there. It gave me a steel type to wrap up my Fairy Dragon Steel Core at that point in the draft. It's a really nice speed tier, very versatile. I think I'm gonna have a lot of fun using Lucario. I've already got a bunch of teams on the dock that I'm just like, okay, special Lucario goes in this game, and it's a very, very fun Pokemon. I'm hoping it kind of plays like Scizor a little bit. It's not as defensive as Scizor, but I'm hoping offensively it kind of resembles Scizor a little bit. I think it's a very underrated tier 2. I think its niche on my team was so nice that I couldn't pass it up, and I'm really glad that I got this Pokemon, because my other tier 2 is my final tier 2 is another tier 2 that I think is kind of slept on sometimes, and that is Diggersby. Diggersby, with the ability Huge Power, runs through most teams. I will say right off the bat, there are a couple teams that I'm facing in the first couple weeks that just straight up lose to Diggersby, and it's Diggersby doesn't have really any switch-ins in limited decks. The same with Lucario, which is why I think they're two very underrated Pokemon. There's not very many switch-ins to both of those things. Quick Attack from Diggersby is dealing a ton of chip from a ton of Pokemon, and with my speed being as kind of as bad as it was, and everybody's speed is bad in this draft, I don't think anybody really has perfect speed tiers, but I kind of covered up my lack of speed tier coverage with the fact that I get Bullet Punch and Vacuum Wave on Lucario. I get priority with Diggersby. I also get Extreme Speed on Lucario, but I get priority. I get Trick Room with Slowking and other Trick Room options if I need them. But Diggersby was a very, very nice pickup. I needed a ground type at this point in the draft. I picked this up second to last, if I remember correctly. Lucario and Diggersby might have been switched, but I know I picked them up second and third to last. I needed a ground type still because Flygon got sniped from me at one point, and Flygon was kind of a Pokemon that was pretty important to my team because it gave me another Levitate Pokemon, which is really, really nice because, like I said, ground type moves against my team are not the nicest thing. But so Flygon got sniped. I had to figure out where to take another Dragonite and where to take another ground type at, and at that time there's not a lot of low tier ground types that I was liking on my team at all. And then I was basically like, because I wanted a defensive ground type, there were things like Mudsdale and stuff at that point. Even Steelix I think was open at that point, which I was looking at, but those speed tiers just were not nice to my team, especially the tier 5 ground types like Sandshrew, Marowak, stuff like that. Their speed tiers just weren't nice to my team, whereas Diggersby, I think it's at 78 speed. Yeah, 78 speed was pretty nice to my team. I go from 78 I think to 72 with the later Pokemon, so its speed tier fit my team, plus the fact that it has priority in stab, quick attack with huge power. And another thing, looking at a lot of people's drafts when I was looking at what ground type to take, offensive ground types look like they run through a lot of teams in this draft. So picking up Diggersby I think is going to allow me to put a lot of pressure on a lot of people's teams, and Diggersby gives me a pivoting option with U-turn, and I think overall it's just a very, very underrated tier 2, especially when it fits such a nice role on the team like it does on mine. And I expect Diggersby to put in a lot of work for me. I think that Diggersby is going to be a surprise to a lot of people, and probably even a surprise to me. I don't think even I'm expecting it to put in as much work as what it's going to, but I know just by looking at a couple of the matchups that Diggersby is going to put in a lot of work, coupled with the other Pokemon that I have. I think the other Pokemon I have are really nice paired with Diggersby, because you have to think Gengar and Diggersby actually defensively help each other out a good bit, because if Diggersby is about to take a fighting type attack, Gengar can come in on an aggressive switch. If Gengar's about to take a Shadow Ball, then Diggersby can come in on an aggressive switch. Or if Gengar's about to take like a Phantom Force from some kind of physical ghost, Diggersby can come in on a aggressive switch and take that move and then be able to deal damage back. So offensively they help each other out, and defensively they help each other out the same way, with Diggersby taking Shadow Balls from things like Slowking. If Slowking doesn't want to take a Shadow Ball, then I can go into Diggersby and put a lot of pressure in. Although Diggersby won't be my main Shadow Ball switch in, you'll probably see that later on. But for right now, we're going to talk about the dragon that I did pick up, and that's Druddigon. This is a Pokemon, this is one of the Pokemon that I've used before. It was in TBA. Whenever I took over a team, I revamped the team into basically a double glare double glare team with superior Jardigon, and I really like Jardigon. This gave me a solid stealth rock option, which I didn't have with the Flygon plan, but I was kind of okay with it because I had really good removal on that plan. But whenever Flygon got sniped, I originally had Savali, and then I changed Savali to Diggersby, changed Flygon to Jardigon. Jardigon gives me really good stealth rock option. It gives me good speed control with glare, which is another really good thing, because at the time I also had a big gap between Gengar and Lucario in speeds, which I eventually patched up. But at the time I didn't have it patched up, so I was thinking that glare would kind of be one of my main speed controls. But I'm glad that it's not, because now Jardigon can actually put in some offensive work. And this is the Pokemon I was talking about that in Trick Room actually could kind of do some work. I was making some jokes about how I was going to bring Banded Trick Room because my speed tiers were so bad. But really, Banded Jardigon in Trick Room is not a bad idea. Even Life Orb Sheer Force, not a bad idea. Jardigon could come in after a teleport and kind of wreak havoc on a couple Pokemon inside Trick Room. So my opponents definitely have to watch out for it, and I don't want to get stuck into just running Stealth Rock, Glare, Jardigon every single week, because in TBA I played with Jardigon for 6 weeks, and every week I brought Stealth Rock, Glare, and 2 coverage moves, either Dragon Tail, Iron Hit, or whatever. But I don't want to get stuck into that with Jardigon this season. I want Jardigon to play a more diverse role as my tier 3 dragon in this league. And I think that I've wrapped my team up well enough that it can do that. And I think, because the thing with Tin Mons is I don't want to get too predictable in the sets that I bring, because if I do end up getting too predictable, then people who are prepping for me in Platinum specifically, the people who are in Platinum and paying any kind of attention to the games that I play, if they see me bringing the same set over and over, then I'm going to get punished for it. I'm going to get punished for it hard. So I try to make sure that every Pokemon that I had could play kind of multiple roles on my team, which I think Jardigon does pretty well. So I'm happy with the tier 3 dragon. Like I said, I wanted it to be Flygon, which I've had before. Had Flygon actually in every every Galar Dex draft up until this one that I've ever participated in, because tier 3 Flygon is just so good. But I think Jardigon is actually going to put in a lot of work for this team. It also gives it another kind of physically defensive option. Like, they don't really want to hit Jardigon physically because of rough skin, and you could run things like Rocky Helmet. You also, like I said, Life Orb, Sheer Force, Choice Band, Leftovers, whatever. Like, there's just a lot of sets that you can run with Jardigon. So I think it was a pretty decent pivot off of my Flygon snipe into the Jardigon pick. And because there's not a lot of dragons that are actually super great in Galar decks, and with 14 teams, every one of those teams is going to be taking a dragon, and there's like 8, I think I counted like 8 dragons that you really want to take, and then every dragon after that just significantly falls off in the value of dragons at that point, because then you're taking dragons like Flapple and Appleton, and while they're good Pokemon, there obviously is a big tier difference in those Pokemon and things like Jardigon, Flygon, Dragapult, Hydreigon, and stuff like that. So my other tier 3 was Serena, and at this point in the draft I was thinking, I need a grass type. I don't know where my grass type is. I need removal, and if you watch the beginning of UGL, I originally drafted Serena in that league too, but Serena wasn't really fitting that team all too well. Serena, I think, fits perfectly inside this team. Priority is going to be a very big thing for a lot of teams, because like I keep saying, speed is not readily available in Galar decks. So I think priority is a very prevalent thing on a lot of teams, which I get to ignore because of Queenly Majesty. So if they do want to spam priority moves, Serena can come in and kind of deal with those. Serena can run Band, it can run Boots, it can run Life Orb, E-Belt, it can probably run like a leftover set, a bulkier set. There's just a lot of stuff that Serena can do. It gets Rapid Spin, which was nice because at the time I still needed a couple more removal options. It gets a ton of coverage now. It gets things like Acrobatics, it gets Play Rough, High Jump Kick, Knock Off, it gets Power Whip, Trop Kick, Seed Bomb, Triple Axle is the new thing it gets, which is huge for Serena, because now flying types can't just switch in on Serena willy-nilly. Like, they have to be worried about getting hit by a Triple Axle, and I think it gives me another pivoting option. It gets Taunt, it gets Synthesis, it gets Zen Headbutt, which is actually another really good coverage move for it. It gets screens, it gets Facade, which is good. There's just a ton that this Pokemon offers for tier 3. Its stats, I would say, are tier 3 stats, but his move pool is a tier 2 move pool, and it kind of forces this Pokemon into whether or not you put it in tier 2 or tier 3. I do still think it's a tier 3 Pokemon probably, but it's one of the better tier 3s to have on your team, especially with the ability to get rid of hazards on your side, and the fact that it's gonna help with priority spam against my team, and I think that was pretty important in this draft. Then we go on to a very high value tier 4, I think, and that was Rotom Fan. Rotom Fan in tier 4 to me was a steal. It gave me my flying type. Originally I had like Corviknight on my plan, and I knew that probably wasn't getting back to me, and of course it didn't. KJ actually took Corviknight. Skarmory was taken. I didn't really want Braviary again. Mandibuzz was taken. There was just a lot of flying types that were taken at that point, and at this point I needed flying and electric, and boom, there's Rotom Fan. This is my other ground type immunity. It's my only ground type immunity. Serena was my only ground type resistance, which is why you can see this team actually is struggling a lot on people spamming ground type moves on me. But Rotom Fan is going to be very, very good for my team. It gives me a good defogger. Probably will be running boots most weeks, which isn't great because I want to be able to switch up items and run like leftovers or scarf or specs or whatever. But I feel like a lot of the times it's going to be forced into a boots defogger role. It does get things like T-Wave, it gets Air Slash, it gets, like I said, defog, Volt Switch, Hex, you get screens, Pain Split, Shadow Ball. Like, Rotom is Rotom. This Rotom Fan is gonna do Rotom things. It gets Trick, Toxic, Will-O-Wisp. Like, this Rotom needs to do exactly what Rotom does for my team, because I think having the Rotom on my team helps it out a lot, especially with the T-Wave and the Air Slash Rotom form. The kind of bad thing is that my electric type doesn't really want to be taking electric type moves, and that's not great. But I think we have the Pokemon to be able to deal with that kind of stuff. I'm facing electric spam week 1, so we'll see how that goes. If I can deal with that team, then I feel like I have a pretty good electric spam matchup. But overall, I think Rotom Fan was a good tier 4. It was just a value tier 4 that I just couldn't pass up, and I'm surprised I actually got it when I did. I feel like somebody probably would have taken it by the time that I got it, but for some reason nobody had sniped it, and it gives me another defensive option. With, like, Rotom can be pretty defensive with the base 107 defenses. It only has base 50 HP, but that's fine. Base 86 speed though, that was very important for my team. I go from 90 to 86 to 78, I think. So that was very, very important for my team, which is why I ended up taking Rotom where I did in tier 4. And then next, we have one of the most important Pokemon on my team, and that's Wigglytuff. I can't emphasize to you how bad it would have been if this Pokemon was sniped from me. This is a very, very high value tier 5 Pokemon, and I would probably say the best tier 5 Pokemon in tier 5. It gets Frisk, which is huge. I basically get to come in and find out what item my opponent is every single time, and they can't stop it. Wigglytuff is super bulky. You have base 140 HP. Its defenses are kind of lacking, but base 140 HP is very nice. A lot of times when you invest in Wigglytuff, you don't even have to invest in HP. You just go straight into the defenses and call it a day. Base 85 special attack is nothing to laugh at. It gets great coverage because it's a Gen 1 normal type. You get Blizzard, you get Dazzling Gleam, you get Expanding Force, you get Fire Blast, Flamethrower, Focus Blast, you get Grass Knot, Ice Beam, you even get Play Rough, you get Shadow Ball, you get Thunderbolt, you get T-Wave, Toxic, Tri-Attack, you get Wish, and Teleport, which are the two huge things, Wish and Teleport. Me being able to wish up my things like Druddigon, Incineroar, even Lucario behind screens if I ever want to set screens like Rotom, wishing up Serena, wishing up Slowking, even though it has Regenerator, is still nice. Wish passing on my team, and like most of the teams that I draft, is always very nice. And now I have a second teleporter for 2 very good momentum options in Wigglytuff and Slowking, and 2 very bulky teleporters, which is very nice because they can actually run teleport. Wigglytuff is also another rocker. It, like I said, a wish passer, which is basically why I added it to the team. But the biggest thing was this defensive synergies between Incineroar, Slowking, Gengar, and Wigglytuff. Wigglytuff switches into every ghost type move that wants to hit Gengar and Slowking, switches into every dark move that wants to hit Gengar and Slowking. It switches into Slowking switches into every steel type move that wants to hit Wigglytuff. The Incineroar switches into, that was something Incineroar switches into, or maybe I'm just wrong. I might just be wrong. Yeah, I think I'm just wrong. But those 4 Pokemon together all really cover each other's weaknesses very well. Then you add Justified Lucario, you add Levitate Rotom, you add Druddigon with Rough Skin Rocky Helmet. Like, I think my team defensively really wraps each other up like it should, except for the fact that I really want another ground immunity. If I can figure out a way to get another ground immunity, I probably will, but for right now we're rocking with what we got. So defensively, my synergies are very, very nice. Offensively, my synergies are very, very nice. And then I feel like I'm still missing something. Maybe I'm not. I think I'm still missing something. Poison types, that's what I'm missing. Slowking can switch into the poison type moves that want to hit Wigglytuff. But other than that, my defensive synergies really, really wrap each other up very nicely. And I think Wigglytuff's typing in those defensive synergies was very, very important. I took Wigglytuff round 5. Like, I took it pretty early in the draft to be a tier 5, but it's because it was so important to my defensive synergies. I think I even took Wigglytuff before I took Druddigon, which is huge, because you would think in a draft where dragons aren't readily available that you would prioritize your dragon. But Wigglytuff was such high value in tier 5 because once you got past tier 2, you had Aromatisse and Comfey in tier 4, and then you had Wigglytuff in tier 5. And that was your low tier fairies. That's it. And a lot of people were not looking at Wigglytuff, and I knew if I waited on it, people would start looking at Wigglytuff and take that from me. So I'm glad I took Wigglytuff when I did. I got a couple messages after I took Wigglytuff saying that they were taking it next. So I definitely got Wigglytuff at the exact right moment. And our last Pokemon, if you remember watching the Soul Link, I was talking about a pretty heat tier 5. I didn't get it. Surprisingly, Basculin got sniped from me. So I ended up going with Mr. Mime, Galarian Mr. Mime. Galarian Mr. Mime plays a very important role in that it has a great ability, and that is Vital Spirit. Vital Spirit keeps me from having to ever go to sleep, and that's great because I hate sleep. But no, I'm kidding. A lot of people do know that me personally as a Pokemon player, I do not like sleep. So it is cool that it gets Vital Spirit. But the great ability it gets is actually Screen Cleaner. Screen Cleaner, I think, is a very slept on ability, especially for a tier 5 Pokemon. And with Eviolite, it is surprisingly kind of bulky. So having that Screen Cleaner on Mr. Mime is very, very good. I don't have to come in and defog. I just come in with Mr. Mime, get rid of screens. There's one team that has a Roarvel, which I don't face, which is the dumbest thing. That would have been the one match that Mr. Mime comes to. But I don't face the Roarvel team. So kind of screwed the pooch there. Maybe I'll see him in playoffs. But even teams that I feel like Klefki, I face a Klefki team. Screen Cleaner's Mr. Mime is probably going to come to a Klefki game. I face Whimsicott week 2. Screen Cleaner Mr. Mime might come there if I think that screens are coming on Whimsicott. So that ability on a tier 5 Pokemon is very, very good. It also gave me a base 100 speed, so now I'll go from 110 to 100 to 90 to 86 to 78 to 72 to 60 to 45 to 30, I think is my speed tiers. I think I got that right. If I didn't, then yell at me in the comments, but I'm pretty sure I got that right. Overall, Mr. Mime, I think, is one of the better values in tier 2, basically because of its ability and its speed tier. It gets very nice coverage. It gets like Energy Ball, Dazzling Gleam, Blizzard, Expanding Force, Ice Beam. It gets Ice Shard for some more priority, Light Screen, Nasty Plot, Psychic, Psyshock, Rapid Spin. It's another spinner. Shadow Ball, even gets like Sucker Punch, which I probably won't be running. T-Wave, Thunderbolt, Trick Room, Trick, even gets Triple Axle. So, I mean, Mr. Mime might see some kind of gameplay. I'm going to be completely honest, it's probably not going to see a lot, but like I said, with the teams that I think are going to be setting screens, if it's really important for me to get those screens away, then Mr. Mime is the easiest way for me to do that, even though I have defog. But that is the team of the Eterna City Scizors for ISL Season 4. And yeah, I'm excited for the season. I'm excited for my team. Really excited to use Lucario. Really excited to use Gengar and Incineroar. And I'm really excited to use Diggersby. I'm also really excited to use Wigglytuff and Slowking. Like, everything on my team, pretty much everything, I'm really excited to use. And then everything else I'm excited to use. So I think we're gonna have fun. This is the second time I've ever done a draft and came out of the draft thinking I really like my team. The only other draft that I happened in was NPAA, and my team there was completely broken. I ended up placing second in the regular season behind Tago, whose team was even more broken. But I think this season we have a really solid chance, just looking based off matchups on teams. We just have to play like we do. We have to play very well. I feel like I've been playing very well the past couple weeks. So we'll see how it goes. I've got Celestial week 1, and then KJ week 2, and then after that a very hard schedule. It's basically an 11-week gauntlet for everyone that's in the league. So I'm trying to not sleep on any coach or any coach's team, because I don't want to get kind of screwed over by thinking that I just have a game 1 when I really don't, because all the coaches in this league are very good, and I don't feel like dropping to Diamond next season. I think my goal is to stay in Platinum. My goal is to make playoffs, stay in Platinum, don't get relegated. That's gonna be my goal for this season, and if we win, then we win, and that's gonna be huge. But I just want to play a very solid season, be a very consistent coach, and give a lot of players a lot of fun battles. So that is where I'm going to leave you. And if you like what you saw, like, comment, subscribe, and I'll catch you guys in the next one. See ya.